PS.
capital P, ASSW, numeral 0, RD exclamation point. And you may need to refresh your browser.
Okay.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Commissioner Holmes, are you on the call, sir? Oh, there you are. You're reconnected in PrimeGov now. Thank you so much. Mr. Chair, it looks like we should be ready to start at the top of the hour for you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Jennifer
Absolutely.
Swan, if you could make me a host.
There you are, sir.
Thank you.
The meeting will instead be live streamed from remote locations. We want to request that everyone joining us today, except commission members, keep your mic or phone muted until you're called upon to speak. As instructed in the agenda, those who called or emailed us in advance to let us know your name, contact number, or agenda item that you wish to speak to us about will be recognized first. Before the Urban Design Commission votes on each item, I will ask if there are any members of the public that wish to speak. Anyone speaking will be given 3 minutes to speak. Since you are muted, when I call on you, please unmute yourself. On a phone, you will press *6 and then state your name and address for the record before you speak. On a desktop or laptop, you will hover your cursor over the microphone icon to remove the diagonal red line. For anyone speaking today, including commission members, please identify yourself when you begin to speak. If we lose our connection for the meeting shall be stopped and reconvened once the connection is restored. If communications are unable to be restored within 30 minutes, items remaining for consideration will be continued to the next regularly scheduled Urban Design Commission meeting scheduled for Wednesday, October the 28th, 2020 at 3 p.m. by video conference. The agenda documents for this meeting are located at the agenda.okc.gov. Then you would select agenda on the right side of the Urban Design Commission meeting for the day's date, which is September 23rd, 2020. When you see the agenda, when you click on the agenda item, the relevant documents will come up on the box to the right. Jennifer, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Peoples. Commissioner Uday.
Present.
Commissioner Blatt.
Present.
Commissioner Charnenko.
Present.
Commissioner Gilroy. Commissioner Holmes.
Present.
Commissioner Miller, excuse me.
Present.
Commissioner Nguyen.
Present.
Commissioner Varnum. Mr. Chair, you have quorum.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. And once you all have had a chance to review, I'll accept the motion.
I motion to go ahead and approve the August minutes.
Since he's not in PrimeGov, are you guys able to populate that for us?
Mr. Chair, yes, I am, but it does appear that I'm also having technical difficulties. If it would please the chair, I would like to do a roll call vote to approve the minutes.
That's fine.
Was there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Commissioner Uday.
Aye.
Commissioner Blatt.
Aye.
Commissioner Charnenko.
Aye.
Commissioner Holmes.
Aye.
Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Commissioner Nguyen.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, that motion passes with all ayes.
Thank you. And I will need some staff guidance on, I show we have one case withdrawn here. Is this an item that we'll need to call for a vote on, or is this accepted as is?
This item was withdrawn by the applicant. It's action that has already occurred, and there's no case to consider, so there's no action necessary by the commission. It's just a informational item.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Susan.
Yes, ma'am.
Is everybody's video on?
If you could just remind everybody to also put their video on.
Yes, if commissioners would take a moment to provide video. Are you guys able to see me?
I can see you, yes,
Okay.
but I don't see everybody.
Okay.
I just joined as well, James Farnham.
Are we good there? Okay, we'll move along. I showed that there are no continuance requests and no items for no items on the consent docket, which will move us to the cases for individual consideration. Michael, do you want to give us the information on UDCA 19 ending in 00044?
Sure. This is a case to develop the site at the southwest corner of North Classen Boulevard and Northwest 30th Street, addressed at 3005 North Classen, into a laundromat facility with a parking lot accompanying it, along with landscaping and various elements, including screening and lighting and trash enclosure. This item is before you as for a CA approval of a CA request. We've analyzed the project in compliance with the applicable development regulations and design guidelines for the project as they apply here in the Asian district, and found that by and large it is in compliance with all of those standards. However, there is one item we've discussed for you starting on page 3 of the staff report that discusses the issue of being compatible with existing building stock. And that guideline talks about the type of construction and general appearance of the building should be compatible with existing building stock in the vicinity. We made note of the fact that as of right now, there are no buildings around this area that are built with the metal paneling that is proposed for this structure, as indicated by the applicant. But we also wanted to make note of the fact that compatible does not mean it has to match. It just means it goes along with whatever is out there and is compatible with it. And we've assessed that compatibility for this project, and we feel that the proposed development is definitely represents an improvement to the aesthetics of the area. And we feel that the metal paneling that's proposed by the applicant is appropriate for this particular project. Aside from that, the project is in complete compliance with all the other applicable regulations regarding landscaping and parking lot and so on and so forth. And therefore, we've recommended that the commission approve this item. And that completes our presentation. We're prepared to respond to any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Michael. Is the applicant with us?
Yes, they should be. I have their number as 580-761-6395. So if they could be unmuted.
Yes, I'm the applicant. I'm available.
Would you give us your name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is Mark Jordan, and my address is 711 North Hudson Avenue in Oklahoma City.
And Mark, are there any additional details that you would like to share with us on this item?
Not that I'm aware of, unless you all have questions that we can answer. Michael's pretty well gone over everything with us, and the fact that this will be our 5th location, and so we've kind of established our brand identity with that. This will be our 5th, and we have a 6th that's proposed after this one in South Oklahoma City as well. So that, the question about the brand identity or the materials was the only thing that we kind of were concerned with, and we worked with Michael on, and we're comfortable with that. So we're hoping that it meets with everyone's approval so we can move forward.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Do any of the commission members have any questions for the applicant or for staff?
Yes, I have a question for you. Have you been able to reach out to the Asian district and some of the business owners in the Asian district. I did receive an email recently. Someone had posted on our Asian District Cultural Association website that they're really concerned about the aesthetics of the look and feel of what this project would mean to the Asian district. And so that was one of the concerns that they had. After hearing some of this conversation, I'll see what we wanted to add to that.
Early on in the project, when we knew that it was in that district, we quite frankly, I was a little bit perplexed as to what it was we should try to look like. Because if you go through that area, there's a really wide range of building styles and things. And I think what we are proposing, what we've already built at our location in Stillwater and South Oklahoma City, so you can actually see what it is this would look like. I feel like even though it's a little bit different, it does tend to lean a little towards the industrial or a bit modern appearance, but I feel like it melds pretty well together with the other styles of building without, going with one particular style that was there, because that was difficult for us. As far as reaching out to any of our neighbors and talking to them, we have not done that. It's been pretty widely known for a while that we were proposing to build that facility there. A lot of people have reached out to me, just trying to find out when it's going to happen, things like that. There's not a nearby facility. I mean, we researched it pretty well when we made the offer to buy that property, and we felt like it's something that will fit well with the business community that's there. It's not something that's overly served. Location-wise, I think we're sitting in a good position to help that part of the city. So, I understand it's not the same look as some of the other buildings in that area already, but to try to come up with something that would fit exactly would be a hard example to follow.
Now, does it have to be metal fabrication, or can you go to a brick, more like a brick? Have you researched that, or have you given it some consideration, or concrete?
Well, our standard for that was the facility that we opened in Stillwater about 18 months ago, and we did quite a bit of design study on that, and we came up with it was just the appearance that we liked for that area. And again, we repeated it at our southwestern location, and it's been well received. It's not an uncommon style of building now, and there are a number of examples that we've located within Oklahoma City that have been built in the last couple of years that kind of follow that style. And our preference all along was to stay with that. We would prefer not to go to a standard brick and mortar appearance. It's not impossible to do. It was certainly not our preference. We had a brand image that we're trying to maintain.
And if I can add a little bit, my name is Richard Starks. I'm the architect, and my address is P.O. Box 2618, Blanchard, Oklahoma. And on the metal panels, I don't want you to picture like a standard metal building. We've done some other things to accent with accent colors, and then we've run the panel profile is different, and we've also run the panels horizontal instead of vertical, so it doesn't really give you the feel of what your concept of like a traditional metal building. So it's arranged differently.
Mr. Chair, I do want to point out to the commission members that in your packet, right after the application form that's in your packet, there is a visual that was provided courtesy of the applicant that shows what this building might look like if it were built out of CMU concrete block, and how it might be styled using that material to still carry forth their brand. The applicant provided this, we actually pressed them for it, and they did come through with an option B that does show the building constructed with concrete block as opposed to the metal panels. However, as we mentioned in our staff report, we did favor the metal over the concrete block. And there are, just so everybody knows, the commission knows, there are no standards in the Asian district for the style or look of architecture in that district. There's no predilection for Asian themed styles of architecture or anything like that. So the applicant just kind of went along with whatever the guidelines for that district provide. We are, I think, looking to the future to have specific guidelines for Asian and some of the other design districts that come under the UD district. But at this time, the standards are pretty much the same across the board for everything in UD, including 23rd Street, Capitol Hill, a lot of those areas that are under your purview. So I just want to make sure that you, as the commission members, were all aware of the situation with regard to the standards for architecture in this area.
Thank you, Michael, for that reminder. And yes, I want to make sure I'm clear on this. I reviewed that and understood it as a true Plan B, that it was only something that if the commission had an issue with the initial design that we would.
Correct.
I'll make sure I was correct on that.
And under normal meeting circumstances, I would have my renderings printed on a board to bring to the meeting. We have them printed out on hard copy here, and we can hold them up in front of the camera if you would like to see the two renderings of the building.
We have them in our packet. Commissioner Wynn, are you able to view those?
Yes.
I don't think that we can share the applicant's screen.
Yeah, she's got them.
Yeah. Here, let me try to hold that up. Yeah. I don't know. Hold on, might get a little closer. A little closer.
Down.
Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, that's just off my phone.
And that, the one that's the picture off the phone, that is at Southwest 59th and Western.
Yeah, that's the location we opened in April of this year.
And then on our screen, it's the camera just above is the rendering of what we'd propose at Northwest 30th and Classen. And that is the metal panel version, which is, it'll all be the exact same materials that are in that photo that you saw of 59th and Western.
Thank you for that. Are there any other questions by commission members?
I have a brief question. This is Tyler Holmes, one of the commissioners. Say, so the corner, this on the southwest corner of Classen and 30th. And as I'm looking at this, I was curious, there's an existing curb cut on the east side of the building there that I think it looks like it's going to remain as is. Is that the intent there? Or is that a new constructed curb cut there?
Okay, so the one that is on Classen, is that the one you're talking about, or the one that's on 30th?
The one on Classen.
Okay, so the one that's on Classen, the directly south of the stoplight, that is going to be filled in. So there's not an entrance at that location. The entrance is farther south, next to the south property line.
Okay, gotcha. And it looks like the what is it, L-1 and A-0 may still kind of show a little curb cut there, I believe. But it.
Yeah, you're right, Tyler. Mr. Starks, I think if this gets approved today, that we'll probably be asking you for a revised sheet A-0 to show that correction.
That's the old one. Yeah, we're looking for the copy of the plans right now. If you see it on there, it is. I showed the existing where it's located now. and then
Yeah.
we're gonna fill it in.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this item?
Yes, myself does. My name is, this name on the screen says Gabe Carey. That's my son. This is his computer. My name is Peggy, same last name, Carey, K-A-H-R-E. We own 1414 Northwest 30th, the Wyland studio that's been there since 1963, and the building across the street at 3100 North Classen. So I'm just curious on where is the entrance, where is exactly the building going to be? That is it going to be facing, is the entrance on 30th? Is it on Classen? Kind of where it's a huge lot. Where is on the lot is that building going to be placed?
The building is immediately at the corner.
At 30th and Classen?
Yes.
Okay, and is the entrance to that going to be on 30th or on Classen?
The vehicular entrance or the customer entrance?
I get the people where more traffic will be going in and out of to access the building.
There's a driveway to the parking lot from both 30th and from Classen.
Okay, there's just not much space right there. Okay.
The majority of the parking will be west of the building and south of the building. And the main entrance to the building, the main entrance will actually be the southwest corner of the building. Not the main entrance for customers will not be on Classen. It has the appearance of that, but we will have on the southwest corner of the building, there'll be an entrance there that actually have a vestibule that's closer to all of the available parking. So the main entrance will actually be the southwest corner of the building.
Okay, so off of 30th.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
And then the entrance that comes off of 30th. So there's a vehicle entrance off of 30th and then one off of Classen. We have no way to tell which one would be used more. My feeling is that most people would drive past the building on Classen and then turn in the south side.
Yeah.
But we have no way to really regulate that. And then the entrance that'll be closest to your property, we've left a grass buffer, and I've got if you can see the landscape plan, I don't know if you have access to the packet or not, but the landscape plan, we've planted trees along that grass area as a screen to your property.
Okay, all right. I'm just concerned because there's not a lot of space right there, and we have a lot of kids that are in and out, and I just want to make sure everybody's safe. That intersection too at 30th and Classen has a very high percentage of accidents. We've had cars run into our building. There's a lot of red light running. I've got probably a dozen photographs over the last 2 years of really serious wrecks on that intersection. It's very busy. I don't know if the lights are off or whatever, but people run the lights all the time and they get T-boned a lot. So it's already pretty busy.
If you don't mind me asking, what is the building on 30th, the old location? Is it used for anything now, or you've moved across the street?
Right. So we moved across the street in October of 17. We still own the 1414, and we're going to be renovating it and renting it out.
As a residence or a
No, it's commercially
business?
zoned. It's the furthest northwest corner of Asian District, and we were always told if we ever remodeled, we had to use an Asian theme. We've been told that for years. So anyway, that's why I was kind of surprised that that wasn't a requirement. But if it's not, then it's not.
That'll be good for you.
Yeah. I'm sorry?
I said that'll actually make it better for you than if it's not. So.
True. Well, it's only if you remodel. We've kept painting and just giving facelifts, but no remodeling. As long as it stays in its original condition and you're not remodeling, then we're okay.
Mrs. Carey,
Yes, sir.
this is Michael Philbrick, staff planner. Just to give you an idea, a perspective of how far the building is from your property line, your east property line.
Yes,
The
sir.
dimension on the site plan is almost 70 feet.
Okay,
So there's plenty of room
great.
behind this building at the corner for some parking, a driveway, and a landscape strip, as Mr. Jordan just described.
Okay. Good. All right. Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak on this?
Hi, yes, this is Daniel Smith. I live at 1419 Northwest 29th Street. We are the house almost directly catty corner from the site. I'm overall okay with the intended project. My biggest concern is the dumpster enclosure off of the back alley. It's a pretty tight space. And I'm wondering if your intent is to re-pour that alley so that it doesn't get more ripped up than it already is. And is the intent to actually potentially come all the way south through that alley because the southern portion of it is actually part of our driveway to get to our homes.
As far as I know, that was still platted as an alley all the way down. I might be mistaken in that. So I'm not 100% sure how to address the driveway portion of this. But we were trying, by putting the dumpster enclosure, we were trying to, hold on a second, we got an incoming call. We were trying to keep the truck out of the parking area proper. So that was our intention.
Our intent is not to have customers using the alley as a entrance point or exit point for the property.
Yeah.
You know, any more than it's probably being used now.
And
Right.
per the guidelines, it would be in an enclosure, completely with gates and everything.
Right. Okay. And yes, to your point regarding the alley, I believe it is technically still a public way as there are utilities in there. But and you did say you would have landscaping across the west portion to screen.
Correct. We have a grass strip, and as it gets closer to your property on the south end, that the property is sort of L-shaped to the west. And once you get to the western part, south of the violin studio, I think is what it was. As you get farther south, there's grass and then trees planted all along that as a shield.
Okay. All right. Otherwise, I'm happy to see that this vacant lot is going to be infilled. So I believe that's all the comments I had.
Thank you, Daniel.
Good, thank you.
Are there other members of the public that wish to speak on this? Any further comments or questions from commission members?
This is Tyler again. I actually, to Daniel's comment there, I kind of briefly went through on Google Earth of that alley. It is a little rough. I don't know if it is an issue, but it is, it looks pretty unkept. And going to that south side, that looks to be all new. I mean, on that, it may be something to look into to potentially redo and talk to some of them. Because also, as you bring a heavy truck through there, it could do some damage to some of that access, but just more of a housekeeping thing of make it easier for all of you all. But yeah, my impression is that it does look a little rough of how they'd access that.
Thank you, Tyler. Any other commission members? If not, I believe we'll be ready to take a motion.
This is Tony Blatt. I will make a motion to approve the application on the basis that the project meets the regulations and guidelines of the Urban Design Overlay District zoning ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff report.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Turnico. I'll second that motion.
Okay, and are we good to, I see something popping up on my screen. Looks like we may be able to vote electronically here.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, it appears we're good. Jennifer, if you let us know if you were able to receive votes from everyone.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. It appears that I still need to capture votes from Commissioner Miller, Commissioner Nguyen, and Commissioner Varnum. Can we start with Commissioner Miller? How do you vote on this item? Commissioner Miller, are you still with us?
I think muted.
Yes. Sorry, I was messing with the other one. It's saying that voting isn't available. But yes, I'll vote yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Nguyen, how would you like to vote on this item?
I vote nay.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Varnum, how would you like to vote on this item?
Aye.
Aye for Mr. Varnum. Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, the item has passed. We will move down our agenda to our next item. Michael, if you want to give us an overview there.
Sure. Michael Philbrick, Associate Planner with Current Planning and Urban Design. This application is for the demolition of an existing residence at 805 Northwest 8th Street. This is on the north side of Northwest 8th Street between Chartel Avenue and Francis Avenue. After the demolition, the applicant has proposed the development of a 2-story duplex structure on the site with construction of sidewalks, installation of landscaping, construction of driveways, and the construction of a fence. As we've detailed for you in the staff report, there are a number of guidelines that apply to the demolition of structures in the city of Oklahoma City. Those are laid out for you, pages 3 through 6 of your staff report. Our analysis of those guidelines and how this application stacks up to those guidelines is beginning at the bottom, page 6, going on to page 11. We've pretty much outlined for you in detail our concerns about the demolition of this residence. We have also laid out for you the information provided by the applicant regarding the structural integrity of the building and the costs that may be associated with stabilizing it and renovating it to a level that would be comparable to other structures recently completed in the area. At the conclusion of our analysis on this particular issue, we have, as staff, believe that the demolition of the structure could have an adverse impact on the design, form, or urban character of the district, and that the structure may be considered as an historical or architectural resource, and it may not impose an imminent threat to public health, safety, and that may have some viable economic use. Further than that, going on from the demolition to the proposed new structure, we have a couple of issues with respect to the design of the proposed replacement structure. One being the material modules on the structure with regard to the spacing of the joints for the stucco element of the project, as well as the use of cement board stucco as an exterior building material. We've analyzed both of those particular items with respect to the guidelines that apply These are guidelines and a variance would not be required. And the commission has latitude to either vary or waive the guidelines as they see fit. On both points, staff is recommending that the joints, the material modules with the joints as they're spaced in the design, along with the use of cement board stucco is appropriate for this particular structure, in that it has been used in other other structures that have been built in the cottage district before. In conclusion, we have provided for you a recommendation that would deny the application on the basis that the project does not meet the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District. And this is primarily due to the fact that the guidelines do say that we should try to preserve and rehabilitate existing structures wherever possible and it's economically feasible. And we think there's an opportunity there for that. However, if the commission does determine that the existing structure is not an historical or architectural resource, does not pose a threat to public health or safety, or does not have viable economic use, we've offered you an alternative recommendation of approval of the project. I do want to point out that we have one letter that we received late last week with respect to this. It's actually an email. It's a very brief one. I'm going to read it into the record. It's from Mr. Kevin Lee at 815 Northwest 8th Street. In regards to the public notice of public hearing for UDCA 20-00026, we find the design and the look of the new duplex plan for 805 Northwest 8th Street to be pleasing and complementary to the other two duplexes. I believe the new duplex will spur on further additions to our Sosa neighborhood on 8th Street. The old house is dated and has served its purpose until now. Thank you, Mr. Lee at 815 Northwest 8th Street. That concludes our presentation on this item, and we're prepared to respond to any questions that the commissioners may have.
Thank you, Michael. And before I ask to speak, or hear from the applicant, I want to see if we can get some guidance here, just because I anticipate that based on the letters that were turned in, we might get into the weeds a little bit on some of this viable economic use versus economic feasibility. And if I'm understanding this correctly, the applicant has the ability in good faith to determine whether or not it's economically feasible. But when we're talking about the viable economic use, this is something that is a subjective measure for the commission. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, it is subjective. I mean, the code lays out the 3 bullet points that are on page 10 of your staff report that describe how the code defines no viable economic return. The applicant has submitted documentation that discusses his ability to make a reasonable return on investment on the project, but those are 2 separate items.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Is the applicant with us?
Yes. Their number would be 405-526-0285. If they could be unmuted, please. Mr. Lee?
This is Branson Young, Principal Architect with HBR Architecture.
Do you have any information you'd like to share with us on this item?
Well, other than to say that Mr. Lee has gone through and provided documentation, basically got a structural engineer to review the existing structure and make his recommendation. He's also provided a cost estimate as to what it would cost to rehab the project and what the potential financial obligations are as a part of his application to demolish the existing structure.
Are there any questions or comments from commission members?
Will I be able to speak?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If there's nothing from any of the commission members, are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this matter?
Yes, sir, I would.
Okay, could you give us your name and address, please, for the record?
I am Bill Bleakley. I live at 607 Northwest 7th Street, and I'm appearing as president of the Sosa Neighborhood Association. We got notice of this application last Wednesday, and being an organization that has to give notice to board members and call a meeting and make a decision and codify that decision and submit it to the commission, we were unable to get that done, primarily with trying to get a COVID meeting together. And we submitted it to Mr. Philbrick yesterday afternoon, and then was informed because of the Zoom procedures, we are no longer able to do what we have done in the past, and that there had to be a week's notice to it. So in fact, the day that the notice goes out is the day that we had to give a response to the board. This is very awkward. We submitted a very detailed 3-page letter to Mr. Philbrook that he and Municipal Counselor's Office has advised can't be given to you because of open meeting requirements. The gist of that letter, and I don't want to burden you with me reading it, is in the Cottage District, we are in kind of a conundrum. We have these historic structures, such as this example of the bungalow period, which the Cottage District was created to protect. And in essence, what's happening is these properties are being allowed to deteriorate and used as a basis of they should be demolished to build other structures because of their condition. So as the report of the staff shows, in the last decade, we've gone from some 90 of these structures down to some 20-something of these structures. We have a very innovative, creative process going on in the district of creating modern contemporary houses of unusual design. Our letter also expresses that the design of this structure is very box-like with very undistinguishing features to it. Even comparing it to the duplexes to the west, those duplexes have balconies, porches, rooftop terraces, spiral staircases, and have a lot of surface character to their design. Under all these circumstances, what I think would be appropriate is for us to request a continuance of this to the next meeting so that the association board would have the opportunity to meet with the developer to discuss these issues. The association had not been reached out to, and the first notice we got was receipt of the courtesy notice that Mr. Philbrick sent us some 5 working days ago. So in essence, the board would like to have these structures preserved, but the process that's been going on through the last decade is a slow death for these structures. And we are also trying to encourage, and I think the Cottage District Ordinance provides, that there should be design issues involved that makes it compatible with the emerging contemporary development of the Sosa neighborhood, which encompasses the Cottage District. I think unless the commissioners have any questions, that I think is the essence of our presentation.
Any other comments from the public?
As long as I get an opportunity to respond.
This is Susan. I just wanted to let the commission know that if they want to see that letter, we are able to share that letter, and you could read it in more detail on your own if you would like to see that. I think Mr. Blakely did a good job of summarizing what's in that letter, but we do have that ability to share that on screen if you would like to see it.
Okay. Would the applicant like to address any of the comments we've heard?
Yeah, if I can just kind of respond to Mr. Bleakley's comments sort of one by one. The first one is that the property owner, Mr. Lee, doesn't have a responsibility to go through the neighborhood association and seek their approval. That's what this panel exists for. The second item, the criticism of the project being box-like in shape, Mr. Bleakley's own house is very box-like. If you look at 95% of the new construction in that area over the last 10 years, it is all box-like. Even some of the historic properties that have pitched roofs on them, the overall massing and proportions are box-like. So using that as an argument that it doesn't fit within the context of the neighborhood, I strongly disagree with. We have intentionally gone through and tried to implement, certain items that are very prominent in the neighborhood. The very, very simplistic styling and detailing of the project, the small little details like the monk bond and the brickwork, the painted pipe railings that you'll see on the second floor terrace that also exist on adjacent properties. The street side approach with the front porches is very similar to the rest of the properties in the neighborhood, including those to the west. I'm failing to see what the argument is that we have failed to make this thing fit within the context of this neighborhood.
Thank you. Do any commission members have any comments or questions at this time?
I have a question for Michael. Hey, Michael, if a one-story building were to be designed for the area as is to be built new, would that need a variance per Urban Design Commission's standards for the SOSA district?
Yes, there's a minimum height limit of 2 stories.
Okay, so if this building were to be built as is, it couldn't be built unless it had special permission.
If they wanted to build a 1-story duplex, then yes, they would have to get a variance to do that.
Okay, just wondering. I did look up, I think Bill's house, and I think his is 1 story.
Yes.
An observation. So this actually abides by the urban design standards as is, actually more applicably than I think the rebuttal on that. So.
Any other comments from commission members?
This is Glenn. I do want to make just a couple of comments on the design aspect. I do think that the south facing facade has a little bit more character. That's maybe a little more consistent, but that character does not wrap 360 around the building. I realize that's the front, and that's the side that's going to be dominant on the site. But the west side to adjacent property and the north to the alley is definitely, I can see where an individual on the design review committee would comment on the fact that although all of these structures are modern in character and form, that has a lack of detailing, or at least a lesser degree of detailing than what is being presented on the front facade. I think the front facade has some articulation that's similar to what's in the balance of the SOSA district, or the new builds within the SOSA district. I'm torn as well because I like the original bungalow court style, the original bungalow, airplane bungalow, 1-story historic structure. It's difficult to step out against a structural engineer and make comments when they present under their stamp recommendations and guidance to the stability of the structure. So that's a big hurdle to overcome. And I also think that the building as being presented is complementary to the district as a whole. So I personally would love for the applicant to work with the district and have some sort of conversation. No, there is no requirement, but your neighbors. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing to have open dialogue. To that statement, I also realize that it isn't a requirement and it's not something that we can hold anybody to here, or at least I don't believe that we can. Council can tell me if I'm incorrect about any requirement for dialogue between a property owner and the neighborhood design review committee. But otherwise, I can see the side. I can see this from both sides. I don't necessarily take exception to the south facade of this property. The north facade, and as it's facing into the adjacent property, it's pretty Spartan in any kind of detail.
Any other comments from commissioners?
Yeah, I think I definitely am reluctant to demo sort of the remaining original housing stock. I think a big part of the character neighborhood is that there is the old and the new kind of together. I don't know if this has ever been done before, but I'm curious if there'd be a way to build a new structure behind an existing structure and add to the density of the neighborhood while also maintaining the housing stock. I think that'd be something to potentially consider as well. There's a driveway along the side and looks like you could probably, do something like that potentially.
Any other comments from commission members? Michael, I've got a quick question here. Regardless of whatever motion we get, are we separating the demolition from consideration for the new design?
Well, you can. I mean, obviously, if you deny the demolition, then there's no point in talking about the construction of the new structure. I mean, the two go hand in hand, obviously. You could separate your motion into a vote on the demolition if there's a sentiment on the majority of the commission to go ahead and approve the demolition. But if you have reservations about the design of the new project, you could break that out as a separate motion and have some further discussion on what your concerns are about the new structure. Right now in your staff report, it's set up as an all or nothing motion.
Correct. If there are no other comments from commission members, I believe we're ready to take a motion. And I just want to remind you all that motion may be to continue this, to give time for the applicant to get with the district and see if there's some more harmonious agreement that they could come to.
But for staff, I mean, if we were going to make a motion for recommending a continuance, would we not ask the applicant first if they would be willing to consider that? Is that not the proper protocol?
That's correct.
So just before we go into a motion, would the applicant take any exception to a continuance on this item?
Unfortunately, Mr. Lee is not available as he's dealing with a family health issue. I know that he is not necessarily fond of the idea of doing a continuance on this item, as it kind of creates a delay for the project.
Hello, This is Shelley Sanders. I am the managing member and sole member of the LLC that owns the vacant lot to the east of the property in question. And I would just like to give my comments here. I have concerns about allowing a vacant, dilapidating property to remain in existence if it is not salvageable, and based on the engineer's letters that I read in the attachments, it appears that this is not an economically viable, there's not an economically viable way to repair this property to safe and current living conditions, is what I took away from that. And while I don't have a preference on the aesthetic view of it, of the proposed duplex, I'll let the architects and designers make that decision. I would not be opposed to a demolition of the existing property and a construction of a duplex